My name's Jill Rowe, and in this first episode of a two-parter, I talk with Steve Chalke about not waiting for the cavalry, but instead realising we are the ones we've been waiting for. We explore how change comes from a dedicated small band of people who stand up and work for a world they can see beyond the barricades. We think through why we believe everyone else is responsible rather than us, which is actually a huge deception. And we recognise that we all have agency, and there always exists the invitation to participate in creating change. We hope this episode gives you the courage to shift, move, and pivot so that we can all move beyond the barricades together. Oh, Steve Chalke, another episode.
Yeah, here we are again, Jill. It comes round and round and round. It's like we're always back here.
I know. And I cannot begin this podcast without mentioning the glorious victory for you.
The glorious victory, the greatest event. Palace winning the FA Cup.
Oh my gosh, you were so happy on Saturday.
119 years we've been waiting. No silverware to speak of, except, the kind of junior trophy for a tour of Cornwall or something like that. And now the FA Cup. It's amazing. And of course, I am a Palace fan supporter, but Oasis works alongside Palace on the 4 different big projects, actually, big social projects. So, the match was on Saturday. We're recording this on Monday, and I've already had a meeting with Palace about where we go, what we do, the future. And they're just great. This morning they said, it's fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic, but the real work starts now.
That's that actual chimed quote with you, didn't it?
I thought, yes, this is why I love this team.
Great, though.
It was a great day.
Fantastic. The winning by the underdog is great. Fantastic.
Not anymore the underdog, though.
No.
You see? There you go.
No, not anymore.
No. And what's really great about it is that it transforms hope and opportunity for young people in Croydon and across South London, actually, and extends the amount of work that Palace are able to do. There's so many support services. So it's about employment, it's about hope, it's all of those things. It's about the shops. And for Oasis and Palace, it's about the work we do. We work together on the academy for all the young players. They, of course, supply all the football coaching. We supply the education, and that needs to. There's an opportunity for that to step up, and lots of other things as well.
Of course, I'm sure
I should stop talking about
your head
Palace.
Is buzzing with it. So, question for you: how many times have you been to see Les Mis?
Do you know I?
She went quite recently again, didn't you? I think
went quite recently, and I've been since our kids were young. I took our kids when they were quite young. They were old enough to understand it. And then I've been with them again, I think, and I've been with Cornelia, my wife, several times. And actually, in a few weeks' time, some American friends are coming, friends of Oasis. And we're working on a project with them here and in Philadelphia.
States,
And they wanted to go to see a show. So I said, Les Mis, why waste your time with anything else? So
go again.
Yeah. So they booked a whole load of tickets for The Miserables, and we're going again in just a few weeks.
I think I've been 5 or 6 times.
Oh, well, there you are.
I love it.
Now, why? Yes, why? Why'd you go?
Just because it's just so inspiring, Steve.
It is.
And it's that, it's that when they the barricades.
Yeah, and here's just a quote from the song.
Are you going to sing it?
It's called Tomorrow.
Yes.
The song. That's what you're thinking of. The song they sing on the barricades at the end of the first set. At just before the interval, and they sing. That chorus. Who will be strong and stand with me beyond the barricade? There's a world you long to see. Then join in the fight. that will give you the right to be free. I love those lines. I'd sing them to you because it goes better with the rhythm of the song, etc. Yeah. Who will be strong and stand with me beyond the barricades? There's a world you long to see. And I that's why I go and see it, I think. Yeah, well, there's so much more to it. But I think, yes, beyond the barricades, for all these kids we work with, for all these families we work with, for all these communities, beyond their barricades, there's a world they long to see. Yeah. And they never see it until someone smashes the stuff that stands in their way down. Oh, blimey. So if you ever need a tonic, there you are. Now, we've been advertising Palace, so now we should advertise Les Miserables. Les Miserables as well.
It is fantastic. Yeah. And I think I love it, because it's that people just getting in and getting on with it.
Yes.
Isn't it? And I was thinking, and you said this because we celebrated Oasis being 40 as well on Saturday. And
which clashed with the FA Cup. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? So we planned this date, I guess.
A long time ago,
more than a year ago.
And to be honest, Steve, no one thought that Palace were going to get to the FA Cup final. That's probably why.
That's probably why. And who would even have thought that would be the day of the FA Cup final?
Exactly.
So, but it was, and Palace did. And so
we had a clash.
Well, I was given 4 tickets to go see my team.
But your sons
win.
Your sons and 2 sons.
Two grandchildren and their dads. One a son and they went instead. They had a great time.
They're very grateful.
Yeah, they had a great time.
So the thing
they never forget it, will they?
No, they won't.
Those little boys.
They won't ever forget it. There's a thing that you said on Saturday. That it's too easy to live like we're waiting for the cavalry, like we're waiting for someone to come and fix what's wrong.
Yes. And it strikes me that everybody's waiting. I don't know if I told this. No, I didn't tell this story. But I remember putting on an event in exactly the same auditorium where we had the big celebration of Oasis 40 years on Saturday afternoon. And a government minister came. And he was responsible at the time for working in welfare.
Yeah.
And so he talked about poverty, et cetera, and what we needed to do. And then there was a time of questions. I was chairing it, and someone said, well, you're a government minister then. If you believe all this stuff, why don't you do something about it?
Yeah.
And there was a pause, and he answered, and he says, you're right, but I'm only a government minister. What can I do? And everybody laughed. I mean, the whole place fell out. It's like he told a joke in the comedy house or something. Everybody laughed. But of course, I knew what he was saying.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. He feels like a small cog in a big machine, a government machine that comes up with a policy, and you get in line and you get, whipped, as they say, to vote the right way on everything, whatever. So even if you're a government minister, you can feel like there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
It so happens I was in Parliament very, very recently. and
what you mean just now?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I'm coming from Parliament. There you go. I was trying to disguise it slightly. But anyway, I'd just been in Parliament before being here. And it's just that thing, isn't it? It's like everyone, wherever they are in the system, and the reason I'm telling this story is that the person in a position of some power, you would think, said to me, Steve, I've heard you say endless times that change never comes from the top. It comes ground up.
Yeah.
Do you know? Actually, what I say is it comes from an organised small group in the middle. Because right at the bottom, people are separated and powerless. At the top, do you know, they can't see. They're too far divorced from what's really going on.
Yeah.
But it comes from a dedicated, small band of people in the middle who will speak up and will speak out and point people to a world that they long to see beyond the barricade, which is why I love the lyrics again. And so it was quite informative for me this afternoon to just hear it from another person that the task is ours.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea that the cavalry, so that government minister who spoke the Waterloo venue all those years ago, was acknowledging they're just one piece in a giant machine. But the questioner, the person who asked the question, there's a thing, isn't there, about like we're wanting someone else to turn up and do the fixing, to do the repairing.
Yes.
Why?
I think, I don't know why. Perhaps it's because we feel powerless and we always see everybody else from the outside, not the inside. So we look at someone in a suit and a tie, or we see someone on the TV, or we hear someone make a speech or whatever, or someone that's older than us, or perhaps we feel more articulate than us, or better paid than us, or whatever it is. And we think, we discount our own agency, don't we? I'm nothing much. We all feel that imposter syndrome, I suppose. And on the other hand, we don't see it in other people. We just look to them as understanding what life's about. So we believe that they are somehow going to push through and make it. And that is a huge deception. It's a huge deception because it locks everyone into their corner.
Yeah. You feel like you're a victim as well, don't you? When if you think that there's those people there have got the power, that must make me silent and a victim of my circumstance.
Yeah. Well, and if you're ever in a somebody's given a talk in a hall, for instance, or you're in a group and someone says, "Have you got any questions?" And there's that deafening silence.
Yeah.
And I always think it's not because people haven't got questions or comments. It's because they're scared to articulate them because they might get the words wrong or not say it very well, or they might have missed the point. And then everybody's going to laugh at them, mock them, even if they don't do it out loud. So we get intimidated. And yet, when you speak up, actually, normally people go, wow, they've got courage. I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
We need participation.
Yeah. So there's a shift. We need to personally make a shift or a pivot, don't we, from that being a observer to being a participant. And I think for myself, and I can think about this at lots of levels, but I think there's something as well, isn't there, shifting and pivoting from being someone who complains about something not being right to actually engaging with the challenge to bring about what needs to be right.
Yeah. And when you engage with the challenge, of course, there's always a kind of person in my experience who will say that you've compromised.
Right.
And, our job is to be against things, to stand in opposition to things. But I always think, of course, it's easy to be in opposition. Yeah. And that perhaps that's something that's wrong with our politics at the moment. People fall for the guy who can point the finger. Yeah. And say, wow, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Look at what's happening. If I was in power, everything this would change. Actually, being in power, in servanthood, really, is hard, isn't it? Yeah. Because these are wicked problems, to use that phrase that's kind of become very popular. They're complex. Yeah. And so for every move you make, you sometimes have to make a compromise here to achieve that. And of course, if you're in the ring, however good you are, you're going to get hit in the face. Things are going to go wrong. You're back to the football analogy. You're going to get scored against, sometimes, and then the crowd boos. They always say that about football, don't they? Oh, yeah. They say football is 22 fit people on the field in need of a rest being watched by 22,000 people in need of some exercise. But the people in the stands always know best. I mean, you'd think, you'd think they were all kind of world-class strikers, the way they talk about what should be happening on the pitch, because that's easy. But being on the pitch is difficult. But that's where we got to be.
There's also a thing, isn't there, that we literally believe that all leaders have all the answers, which again is another falsehood, isn't it? Like they just don't. How could that ever be possible anyway?
No. And the way we learn as human beings, as we all know, is we learn by doing. You have an experience. I mean, everything or unless you can think of something that you didn't learn through experience, we normally learn more from our mistakes than anything else, which is why slowly we mature. We all say, 10 years ago I used to think this, but now I think that. Well, we mature as we go because experience teaches us what works and what doesn't work. We start off with a naivety and we grow into maturity, but the maturity only comes by rolling up your sleeves, getting involved, making mistakes, picking yourself up and getting wiser through the process. Have an experience, reflect on it, theorize about your reflection and go in a slightly different direction. Then have a different experience and theorize on it. And it's a perpetual circle, the circle of learning.
Yeah. So we need to learn, do and learn and do and learn. We need to stop believing that we don't have influence, because we do.
Yeah. I've probably said this before on one of our podcasts, but I remember, well, this has happened to me so often, I cannot tell you, but I just pick on one example. I remember when I suggested to the people who were then Oasis trustees that we should start a school, which they knew I always wanted to do anyway.
Well, it's the original dream.
Yeah, but but then I suggested that we should start a school. I didn't tell them that I'd already had a conversation with the government about doing it. Well, I did in the end, that kind of. But why should I say we should start one if it was a meaningless conversation to have? Yeah. So there had to be some ground to it, I'd had that conversation with somebody in government about how we could fix this all up, and then went and told our trustees there was this opportunity, and they said, well, what do you know about education? And what do we know about education? We can't do this. We don't know about it. You don't know anything about this, Steve, which is fundamentally different to my attitude in life. It's like, of course we don't know anything about it because we haven't done it. Where are you going to learn about anything? Yeah. Where do you learn to make a podcast except by making a podcast? Yeah. How can you learn to ride a bike by reading a frigging manual on riding a bike? It can be 1,000-pager, but you still will fall off the bike. You only learn to ride a bike by getting on the thing and wobbling around a bit. Yeah. That's life, isn't it? Yeah. You learn to kick a ball by kicking a few balls, etc., etc. Yeah. So we started off, and they said, "Oh, you can't do this because you don't know anything about education," which is probably true, But the funny thing is, years and years later, there was an article, I think it was in the Times, and for some reason they'd interviewed me about something, and for some reason there was a picture of me, and it said Steve Chalke, educational expert, something like that. And I showed it to the trustees who were still trustees, who had been trustees. I said, there you go. What's the difference between Steve Chalke hasn't got a clue what he's doing and Steve Chalke, the educational expert? Only experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to stop seeing ourselves as not having influence. Yeah. We need to get engaged, to have experience, to show up to the conversation. Yeah.
I would like to point out, though, Jill, that it is still true that I'm not an expert in education. Who is? Only the person who isn't thinks they are. Yeah. Yeah, it's a learning curve. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's there's this knowing, isn't there? We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Yeah. Everyone can see that we're not there yet. Yeah. So there's that. Is it Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, right. Yeah, his uncle. Yeah, Peter's uncle. What's he called?
Peter Parker. Uncle.
Peter Parker. Peter Parker. For those who don't watch, Spider-Man is Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah. Spoiler alert there.
It's like telling someone about.
And his uncle.
Oh no, we won't mention that.
His uncle gives him that great piece of advice, and it's true. Yeah. With great power and great privilege, comes great responsibility and obligation.
So what is our responsibility, Steve, would you say?
Well, the way I see it is, genuinely the way I see it, for me, I'm not trying to preach this to anyone else. I think, well, if I can still walk, if I'm alive, what is the point in being here? Except to serve other people. Yeah. Does that? I know that sounds pious or what, but I don't mean it like that, because I screw up all the time. But you know this, don't you, Jill? It's what your life's about.
Yeah.
It's like, do something worthwhile with your life.
Yeah, we're the ones we've been waiting for, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing I often say to people. I think I did say it last Saturday. It's that, when our children were growing up, we always used to watch the A-Team with them. They used to love the A-Team.
Yeah.
On
No
Saturday.
one died.
No one ever died. B.A. Barricades, all the rest of it. Yeah, Mr. T.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're fantastic. It was a fantastic program because there was always a world crisis. Yeah. And, when nothing works, who are you going to call? Call the A-Team, all this kind of stuff. And, in half an hour or 35 minutes or however long the program lasted, they'd always sort it out, with loads of bombs going off and guns everywhere. No one ever got hurt. No. Not one person.
Great van as well.
Yeah, they had a great black van with loads of gear in. They always had the right gear for every occasion in this van. And my point is this. There is no A-Team, and that genuinely we all wait, don't we? Yeah. We wait for someone will emerge. I remember, when I finally wrote about my commitment to include LGBT plus people.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what we've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
But getting on with it. But I knew somebody needed to raise a debate about it in terms of churches and evangelical churches particularly. And I genuinely used to think, well, someone clever will.
Yes.
I honestly, I did. Someone clever will. And then no one did. And it slowly dawned on me that I should be that person. Not because I thought I was clever, but I was waiting because I thought there were lots of other people who were a lot smarter. Yeah. But then I realised that it needs to be you. We are the A-Team. That's the point.
Yeah. We can't theorise our way to change.
No, never. Yeah, I'm doing too much talking.
It's all right. Oh, it's good to listen to you.
I was going to tell the story that I told on Saturday of our friend Julie.
Oh yeah,
Julie Chalke, because I think it's an extraordinary story, and it doesn't start about Julie at all. And by the way, you should look Julie Chalke up if you're listening to this. She's brilliant, but it doesn't start with her at all. Way back before, the coronavirus was ever a twinkle in its parents' eye type of thing. I was asked to go to Slough and meet with the council, and they told me that they had a really poor ward, the poorest ward in Slough, called Britwell. And they would love Oasis to work on Britwell with them. And the reason for that was because I've been doing some training stuff for NHS staff, and the NHS were really concerned about what was going on in Britwell. And there's these things called integrated care systems, ICSs. And that's when the NHS tries to pull together people to work together to turn a community around. So they invited me to go down and meet them, which I did. And then I started taking a friend of ours, Claire. She was working on this project with me, and we just went backwards and forwards. And then nothing ever happened. And we met with the council and the NHS, the GPs, the fire, the ambulance, the police, I did all in a room. All good people, but all really good people, but nothing happened. So I'm not dissing the people. Nothing happened. Not a thing, except I spent a lot of money on train fares, And then but why were they talking to me? It's because they wanted us to set up some community work. So I said, yeah, of course we do this. You should fund us. Oh, it's a bit difficult to fund you for more than a year. I said, well, we can't get a community worker for 12 months. You need a community worker. A community worker in the first 12 months of their job needs to just listen. If you're only appointing them for 12 months, after 6 months, they've got to think about moving on. And any community worker who knows the first thing about community work won't come and do a job that's only funded for 12 months because they know it's impossible. In fact, it's disrespectful to a community to march in and start telling them what should be going on. You got to just hang out with them, etc. Oh, no, we can't fund you for more than a year. It's got to be a year. So we had this whole debate, and then the lockdowns happened. And then after that, I tried to pick it up with them, and I sat on committees for them and went back on, they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. And in the end, I wrote my book, the Manifesto for Hope, and into it, without ever mentioning Britwell, which I've done now, I just told this story in a pared down way. But the story of frustration with a system that's unable to do anything for anyone but spend a lot of money doing nothing and have a lot of committees doing nothing. And the wonderful people in it are all crippled. All
by the system.
By the system. Anyway, I wrote the book and I sent it to my friend Julie because I asked her if she'd do a quote for it. Julie's a Muslim leader. And I thought, yeah, it'd be great to get a female Muslim leader doing a quote for this book. So I sent her this thing and I said, Julie, if you could do this, it would really help me, but you don't need to. Anyway, time went by. And then one day on my phone, this very phone, I got a text, a WhatsApp voicemail from Julie. Right? But it was 20-something minutes long. It came in two halves, but adding it up, it's all more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes long. I thought, I haven't got time to listen to a 25-minute thingy-jingy. So I just left it for a few weeks until I was on a train with my good friend Joy, and I said to her, it was quite a long train journey through London, and I said to Joy, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to listen to this text. And it was Julie telling me how brilliant she found my book. Not because I wrote it well. She said, it's like my experience just like this. She said, I live in a community and it's really struggling. I've lived here for 20 years and no one will speak to me, but I stay. And my husband sometimes says, why don't we move out? But I say, no, we've got to stay because we should serve this community. And he used to say, but they don't listen to you. No one listens. None of the powers listen. So in the end, and she was crying as well. So in the end, I rang her up and I said, oh, Julie, it was so sad to hear your story. Where do you live? And she said, Britwell. Britwell. But that's not even the end of the story, though we're probably going on too long. So I then said, well, I'll introduce you to all the powers, all the committees and all the rest of it. So I started introducing her and I said, look, this woman has lived here 20 years. She's exactly what I said. She's got all this track record. Oh, no. We can't just do that, Steve. We need to go through a procurement exercise. And the rules have changed. Honestly, that's what they said. The rules on procurement have changed. So this would be quite tricky. And in the end, we just couldn't get anywhere. So I said to some guys in Oasis, I said to Dave and Kat, who, we work with closely in Oasis, I said, is there any chance we can find some money for Julie for a day a week, just a day a week? And they did. And we actually got on. When I say we, Julie did it. Within months, she turned it around. That schools were working together. The churches were working together. She's done loads of stuff with the whole community. Like they've had celebrations and they've launched projects and done all sorts of things. It's absolutely amazing. And then last week, at the end of last week, Slough, not just Britwell, the whole of Slough, made her the mayoress. She's become the mayoress of Slough. This time last year, well, just over a year ago, no one would engage her at all. Now she's the mayoress of the whole borough or local authority because she's an activist.
I know.
It's an amazing thing. So why didn't they listen first? Well, there you go. Beyond the barricades, there's a land.
Our game.
You long to see.
Another thing that happened on Saturday, Steve, was we had a choir sing to us.
We did.
Brilliant students from Oasis Academy, Silvertown. And they sang Self-Esteem's latest song, and the lyrics were, and now I see it clear with every passing of each year. I deserve to be here. And every time I fall, I crawl back like an animal. My focus is powerful. And it was really powerful listening
It was fantastic.
to those young people say, I deserve to be here.
Yeah, it was amazing.
My focus is powerful.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about we're the ones we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
You know, and I was looking at those young people and I was listening to
loads of such a big choir.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I was listening to them sing those lyrics and I'm thinking about the quote you gave from Les Mis' Victor Hugo. Like, we have to turn up, don't we? We have to turn up with focus. Be willing to subvert the system.
Yes, absolutely.
Take the mission on.
Yeah. Wasn't it wonderful? Genuinely, it was. Such great voices.
Yeah.
All
and
in
loud.
rhythm, all in time, yet all loud, all not
loud.
afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, basically, they sang at the beginning. Well, it could have been the end as well. Do you see what I mean?
It was just brilliant.
By the time they'd sung that song, you'd really got it. You go, oh, yeah, I get it. This is what I got to do.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
And I was thinking about, because I was speaking here, wasn't I, yesterday at church, and we were talking about that phrase that gets bandied around in Christian circles about who's elect and who isn't. And I said yesterday, didn't I?
Who's chosen, that means.
Yeah, who's chosen.
Who's chosen by God and who isn't chosen.
Who's the elect? And I just said yesterday that when you're elected, you're given a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think, what was the quote from Les Mis that you had right at the beginning?
All right. Who will be strong and stand with me? Beyond the barricade, there's a world you long to see. Then join the fight that will give you the right to be free.
And there's another quote from Hugo, which I use a lot, which is this. There's one thing stronger than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come and whose hour has struck. And I think we've talked about that idea. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Jill.